Okay, we are in Affinity Photo, and we're going to be looking at some of the things that you can do to correct for overexposure and underexposure. So the first thing we'll do is we'll come and look for our raw files. Now the kind of correction I'll be able to do with a raw file is way beyond what I could do with a JPEG file, and that's the purpose of shooting raw and learning how to work with raw files. So I'm going to start by bringing in this very, very overly exposed image. You can tell that the image is just completely washed out by light. So right now I'm in Affinity Photo. I know that it's a raw file because I see up in the upper left-hand corner, it tells me that it is a raw file. It also tells me what I used to shoot this photo with. And so now I'm going to come over to the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm right now in what's called the Develop persona. That is the menu mode for working with raw files. So in the menu persona, so in that Develop persona, I'm working with the raw file, and as you can see, I'm just working with exposure right now. So now I'm just taking the exposure down to the left a little bit, and you can see the difference. Okay, now if you look, we started somewhere around here, right? If you look at the histogram, look at the difference. So started here, okay, look at where the histogram is, and when we slide over to the left, the histogram starts to become even. And I can tell by this line, this blue line on the right that's spiking, that there's still something a little bit off in terms of the brightness, the overall brightness. So I'm going to go to the highlights, and I'm going to see if there's anything I can do to reduce, again, what might be some of that glare. And so I was able to take that spike down just a little bit, and then we'll come to contrast, and we'll just increase the contrast just a tad. And the last thing I might do is come over to the shadows, and also I might just take the shadows down just a little bit. So I'm starting to see all of the detail now that I would expect to see. So this looks like a well-developed image. The other things that you can do would be you could correct lens distortion if you were dealing with a DSLR. We could also go into things like noise reduction, which would be useful for nighttime shots and things like that. There are also red, green, blue, working with curves and things like that. We probably won't go into any of that right now. Suffice to say, the most important thing that you can do is work on the exposure aspects of the image. So when you're ready, and also you can look at the split tone. That'll actually show you the before and the after, right? So when you're ready to develop, you simply develop it. And then at that point, you can export that file. And you can export that file as a JPEG to turn in, or a PNG. The PNG will save just a little tiny bit higher quality, but the JPEG will be fine for our purposes. And that's that. As soon as you have that file, you're done with that one. Now let's take a look at some of the other kinds of problems we might run into. Let's go to, let's this time go to an underexposed image. So let's go to this image. Tight shot of a flower. This is an underexposed image. So not much detail at all in terms of these trees in the back. Overall, it's a little bit dark. Again, it's a raw file, so I have the ability to enhance the exposure a little bit and bring in quite a bit of information. Now I can see that I'm starting to level things off. I can see the histogram is changing nicely, but I still have some areas in the darks that, like in the shadow area, that I still might be able to get a little bit more detail out of. So look at the difference now. Let's do the split screen. Look at the difference between the left and the right. Quite a good difference. So anyhow, I would go ahead and at this point, I would export that as well. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of other things that we can do now. Let's develop that image. And one of the things we might want to do at this point is crop the image. Now, this image, pretty nice. I mean, it's pretty well shot, but just using the cropping tool, I can do a few other things to it just to kind of center it a little bit more if I wanted to, and just maybe crop in a little bit on the bottom here so that I can eliminate, maybe some things that I don't think are as important in the photo. Okay, and then of course after that I would go to export again, export as a JPEG, and there you have it.